Family, I need you to lean in close today because what I'm about to share isn't just a word. It's a warning and a promise all wrapped up in love. You've been praying, you've been fasting, you've been crying out for a move of God, and I came to tell you he heard you. But before the blessing drops into your life, before the breakthrough bursts wide open, God will start sending you signs that something big, something life-shifting, something you can't even fully imagine yet is on its way. And if you're not careful, you'll miss it because it won't look the way you expected. Today, I want to walk you through the divine hints, the holy whispers, the shaking in your spirit that says, get ready because your life is about to change. Are you ready? Because once you know the signs, you'll never see your waiting season the same way again. When God is about to do something big in your life, one of the first signs you will encounter is unusual opposition and warfare. It's not the ordinary frustrations of life. It's not just the casual inconveniences or the small bumps in the road that we all face daily. It's a thick resistance, a pressure that feels almost unnatural, like something is pushing against you with everything it has. You start to feel like you're under attack in multiple areas at once. Your peace, your relationships, your health, your mind, your resources. It's as if the enemy has put a target on your back because he can sense what's coming even before you fully can. Hell doesn't waste ammunition on anything that isn't a threat. And when you are on the brink of elevation, you are a major threat to the kingdom of darkness. This warfare is strategic and it often comes subtly at first. You'll notice people you thought were for you beginning to act differently. You'll feel misunderstood, isolated, and sometimes betrayed. You may start to question if you even heard God correctly because the environment around you feels so hostile. It's important to recognize that this opposition is not a sign that you are off course. It is confirmation that you are precisely where you need to be. It's the enemy trying to discourage you before you even get to the open door. If you can be shaken here, you won't survive what's waiting for you there. So this warfare becomes a part of your preparation. The enemy often intensifies the attacks right before your breakthrough because he knows he cannot stop what God has ordained, but he hopes to convince you to walk away from it voluntarily. The fear, the doubt, the mental exhaustion, they are all aimed at getting you to forfeit the blessing before you even see it. He can close the door God has opened, but he can try to make you too tired, too scared, or too disillusioned to walk through it. That's why the fight feels personal. That's why it feels overwhelming, because it is designed to hit you where it hurts the most. You'll find that sometimes the warfare won't just be external, it will be internal too. Your old insecurities, your old fears, your old wounds will start to resurface. Things you thought you had already dealt with will try to creep back into your mind and heart. The pressure will cause cracks to appear in places you thought were already healed. This is not to shame you or to cause you to retreat. It is God allowing you to see what still needs his touch before he brings you into the new thing. Elevation requires wholeness. It demands a certain level of spiritual maturity and emotional stability. So the warfare also serves as a mirror, revealing the areas where you still need to surrender and grow. Another part of the unusual opposition is that opportunities that once came easily may suddenly seem to dry up. Doors that were wide open may slam shut. Resources you thought you could depend on may vanish. You may feel like you're walking through a dry and barren land with no sign of provision, but in reality, God is severing your dependence on anything and anyone but him. He is stripping away the safety nets and the backup plans because what he is about to do in your life cannot be attributed to anyone else but him. The elevation you are stepping into is so significant, so weighty in the spirit, that God wants it to be undeniably clear that it was his hand alone that brought you there. You will also notice that the warfare is often timed to coincide with moments when you are making significant steps of obedience. Every time you say yes to God in a deeper way, the pressure seems to increase. Every time you decide to trust him when it doesn't make sense, the attacks seem to intensify. This is not a coincidence. Your obedience is dangerous to the enemy's plans. Every yes you give to God dismantles a plan of the enemy. Every act of faith tears down a stronghold. So the enemy will try to hit you hardest when you are closest to your breakthrough. But the very fact that the warfare is increasing is a sign that you are advancing. You are moving closer to the territory God has promised you. Sometimes the opposition will come through delays. Things you expected to happen quickly will take longer than you thought. Promises you believed would be fulfilled by now will seem distant. The waiting can feel excruciating, and the temptation to settle for something less than what God promised will become strong. But the delay is not denial. The delay is preparation. It is in the waiting that your faith is refined, your character is developed, and your endurance is strengthened. The blessing you are about to step into requires a version of you that is resilient, rooted, and ready to carry the weight of the promise. The warfare and the waiting is forging that version of you. Another thing to understand about unusual opposition is that it often brings with it a spirit of confusion. You'll find yourself questioning decisions you were once sure about. You'll wonder if you missed God somewhere along the way. Confusion is a tactic of the enemy to get you to abandon your assignment. But when you encounter confusion, it is a sign to anchor yourself even more deeply in the Word of God. His Word is your compass. His promises are your foundation. When everything around you is shaking, his truth remains unshakable. During this time of warfare, you will need to be extremely discerning about who you allow to speak into your life. Not everyone can see what God is doing in you. Not everyone will understand the journey you are on. Some people, even well-meaning ones, will try to talk you out of your promise because they can't comprehend the magnitude of what God is about to do through you. You must protect your ear gate and your eye gate during this season. Surround yourself with people who speak life, who remind you of God's promises, and who encourage you to keep going even when it gets hard. Prayer and fasting become essential during this time. They are not just religious rituals. They are weapons of warfare. Prayer keeps you connected to the heart of God. It reminds you of who you are and whose you are. Fasting quiets the noise of the flesh and heightens your spiritual sensitivity. It positions you to receive divine strategies and supernatural strength to withstand the opposition. This is not the time to shrink back. This is the time to press in. You may also notice that your dreams and visions become more vivid during seasons of unusual warfare. God will begin to speak to you more clearly in the night hours, revealing glimpses of what is to come, giving you instructions for the journey ahead. Pay attention to these dreams. Write them down. Pray over them. They are often confirmations that you are on the right path, even when everything around you says otherwise. Finally, understand that unusual opposition is a prophetic indicator of imminent breakthrough. It is heaven's announcement that a shift is near. It is a sign that the promise is not just coming, it is already on its way. When God is about to release something big into your life, one of the clearest signs you will experience is a divine disruption that forces you out of your comfort zone. This disruption won't always come the way you expect. Sometimes it shows up in ways that feel uncomfortable, unfamiliar, even unfair. It may feel like life as you know it is being uprooted without warning. But what you have to understand is that elevation always requires separation from the old. God is too intentional to allow you to remain in spaces that can no longer support the weight of your calling. So he shakes things up. He stirs the nest. He removes the cushions you've been leaning on so that you have no choice but to step into the next dimension of your destiny. These divine disruptions are not punishments, they are positioning tools. They are the way God closes chapters that you have either outgrown or that would hinder your progress if you remained in them. Sometimes you won't even realize you've settled until God disrupts your atmosphere. You thought that relationship was safe, but God knew it was stifling you. You thought that job was secure, but God saw it was capping your potential. You thought that version of your dream was good enough, but God wanted to expand it beyond what you could imagine. And so to get you to move, he interrupts your comfort. One of the ways this disruption manifests is through a holy dissatisfaction. Things you once enjoyed begin to lose their flavor. Opportunities that once excited you now leave you feeling drained or indifferent. You wake up feeling restless, sensing there is more but unsure how to reach it. This holy dissatisfaction is God's way of unsettling you internally before he shifts you externally. He stirs a hunger in you for something greater because he knows that without that hunger, you might be tempted to stay in places that no longer serve your purpose. The ache you feel for more is not a sign that you are ungrateful. It is a sign that you are growing. It is evidence that God is expanding your capacity for what he is about to entrust to you. Sometimes the disruption is more dramatic. It comes as a sudden transition, a move to a new city, an unexpected career change, the end of a long-term relationship, a shift in your family dynamics. These abrupt changes can leave you feeling disoriented and afraid. You may find yourself questioning why God would allow such upheaval, especially when you were doing your best to walk in obedience. But what you must remember is that divine disruption is often the answer to prayers you forgot you prayed. You asked God to use you, to grow you, to bless you, but you didn't always realize what the process would entail. Before he can bring the promise to pass, he has to ensure that you are positioned correctly to receive it. There are seasons where God will allow the discomfort to persist until you respond in obedience. It is possible to delay your own breakthrough by resisting the disruption. The longer you try to hold on to what God is trying to move you away from, the longer you remain in a cycle of frustration and stagnation. Growth requires movement. It requires the willingness to leave behind what is familiar for the sake of what is greater. Abraham had to leave his country and his father's house. Moses had to leave the comfort of the palace. Esther had to leave behind her anonymity. Each of them experienced a divine disruption that pushed them into purpose. Another way divine disruption reveals itself is through closed doors. You may find that paths that once opened easily are now inexplicably blocked. Opportunities dry up, relationships drift apart, resources you once relied on become unavailable. And while it can be tempting to see these closed doors as rejections, they are often God's redirection. He is guiding you away from places that cannot sustain your next level. He is protecting you from blessings that would become burdens. Not every opportunity is a God opportunity. Not every connection is meant to accompany you into your future. Trusting the closed doors is just as important as walking through the open ones. During this time, you may also experience an acceleration of internal change. Your mindset begins to shift. Your values realign. Things that once seemed important lose their significance. You start to crave authenticity over acceptance, purpose over popularity, growth over comfort. This internal shift is necessary because the elevation God has for you requires a new level of thinking. You cannot carry old mindsets into new seasons. Transformation always precedes elevation. God changes you before he changes your situation. Sometimes the divine disruption is not about moving you to a new physical location, but about moving you to a new spiritual or emotional space. He disrupts your thought patterns, your belief systems, your coping mechanisms. He challenges the lies you have believed about yourself, about him, and about your worth. He calls you to confront fears you have buried and wounds you have ignored. This internal disruption is often the most painful because it forces you to face yourself honestly, but it is also the most necessary because you cannot possess the promise if you are still shackled by the chains of the past. You may also notice that divine disruption often comes with divine connections. As God moves you out of old spaces, he begins to introduce you to new people, new mentors, new communities that are aligned with your future. These divine appointments are not random. They are strategic placements meant to encourage, equip, and accelerate you. Be open to new relationships. Be discerning, but do not allow fear from past betrayals to cause you to reject the very people God has sent to help you build the next chapter of your life. Another important aspect of divine disruption is the increase in spiritual sensitivity it produces. As you navigate the discomfort and uncertainty, you are drawn closer to God. You pray more fervently. You listen more carefully. You seek his guidance more desperately. The disruption strips away the distractions and demands a deeper level of intimacy with him. It is in the wilderness seasons that we learn to recognize his voice most clearly. It is in the moments of brokenness that we experience his power most profoundly. Financial disruptions can also be a part of this process. Seasons where resources seem scarce are often invitations to trust God as your true source. They are opportunities to develop financial stewardship, discipline, and faith. God may be preparing you to handle greater levels of provision, but first he wants to see if you can trust him in seasons of lack. Your provision is tied to your obedience, not your circumstances. When you learn this lesson, no amount of external instability can shake your internal security. Divine disruption often exposes idols in our lives. Anything we place above God, be it a job, a relationship, a status, or even our own plans, will eventually be shaken. God will not compete for his rightful place in your heart. He will lovingly but firmly dismantle anything you have built your identity around that is not rooted in him. This exposure is not meant to shame you, but to free you. It is an invitation to build your life on a foundation that cannot be moved. Throughout this process, it's critical to maintain a posture of surrender. You may not understand why God is allowing certain things to happen, but you can trust that his plans are for your good and his glory. You can trust that he sees what you cannot see. You can trust that the disruption is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of something greater. When God is about to do something big in your life, you will begin to experience an urgent, unshakable stirring in your spirit that you cannot ignore. It is not born out of anxiety or fear, but out of a deep knowing that something is shifting, even if nothing around you looks different yet. It is a divine restlessness that pushes you to move, to change, to prepare, even before you have a clear picture of what you are preparing for. This stirring comes from the Holy Spirit, awakening something inside of you that has been lying dormant, something that has been waiting for the appointed time to rise. This stirring often disrupts your normal routines. Things you once could do without a second thought now feel heavy or meaningless. Conversations you once entertained seem empty. Activities you once enjoyed now feel like distractions. There's a sense of urgency to focus, to realign, to declutter your mind and spirit from anything that might hinder what is coming. You find yourself drawn to prayer more frequently, craving worship, needing quiet moments where you can hear God clearly. It is as if your soul is leaning forward, reaching towards something that your eyes have not yet seen, but your spirit already knows is on the horizon. This unshakable stirring will often come with specific instructions from God, even if they seem small or unrelated at first. He might tell you to start waking up earlier, to spend time with him, to begin fasting, to forgive someone you have been holding a grudge against, to save money, to study something new, or to work on a skill. At the time, these instructions may not make full sense. You might wonder why God is urging you toward these disciplines without any visible opportunities or open doors. But obedience in the small things is often what prepares you to handle the big things. The stirring is not just about feeling excited. It is about responding with preparation and obedience. Another aspect of this stirring is a heightened sensitivity to the spiritual atmosphere around you. You start discerning shifts in people, places, and opportunities with greater clarity. You recognize when a season is closing and when it is time to pivot, even if it feels inconvenient or uncomfortable. You sense the hidden battles others are fighting, and you are more attuned to the spiritual warfare surrounding your destiny. This increased sensitivity is a gift, but it also comes with the responsibility to guard your heart, your time, and your environment more carefully. Sometimes the stirring will cause you to feel isolated even when you are surrounded by people. It's not that you are better than anyone else. It's that your assignment requires a level of focus and consecration that others may not understand. God may pull you back from certain relationships, certain crowds, even certain opportunities, because he is setting you apart. Separation often precedes elevation. The stirring is calling you into a deeper place with God, a place where you can be stripped of the distractions and fortified with the strength you will need for the next season. You may also notice that during the stirring, old desires and dreams begin to resurface, but they come back refined, purified by the fires you have walked through. What once was a casual ambition becomes a holy burden. What once was a fleeting thought becomes a mandate. God breathes new life into the visions he planted in you long ago, visions that may have been buried under disappointment, fear, or delay. The stirring is his way of telling you that it is time to dream again, but this time with wisdom, faith, and maturity. Another manifestation of this unshakable stirring is a deep, sometimes uncomfortable awareness of areas in your life that need to be addressed. Patterns, habits, mindsets, and even emotional wounds that you could once overlook suddenly demand your attention. God shines a light on the things that can no longer go unchecked, not to shame you, but to heal you, not to condemn you, but to prepare you. The greatness he is calling you into cannot be built on shaky foundation. So the stirring prompts a season of intense self-reflection and intentional growth. There will also be moments during this stirring where your faith is tested like never before. You will be asked to believe beyond what you can see, to trust in promises that have no immediate evidence, to walk in obedience without full understanding. The urgency you feel is designed to push you beyond surface level faith into a deep, unrelenting trust in God's character, in his timing. Preparation is not always glamorous. Sometimes it looks like building in silence, sowing in tears, trusting in the dark. But every moment of preparation is setting the stage for the manifestation of God's promises in your life. This stirring will often cause you to reevaluate your commitments and your priorities. You start asking yourself hard questions about where your time, energy, and resources are going. You recognize that not everything and everyone can go with you into your next season. There's a pruning that must take place, a letting go of what is good in order to embrace what is God. It takes courage to release the familiar in pursuit of the unknown, but the stirring makes you brave. It reminds you that what God has for you is worth every sacrifice. In this season, you may find yourself drawn to prepare in ways that seem unusual or premature to others. You might start writing the business plan before you have the funding. You might start training for the ministry before you have the platform. You might start studying for the opportunity before it presents itself. This kind of preparation requires faith because you are building in expectation, not in evidence. You are moving in response to the word of the Lord, not in reaction to the circumstances around you. Noah built the ark before there was rain. David practiced his aim before there was a giant. Esther prepared her heart before there was a summons from the king. Preparation always precedes promotion. The stirring will also expose any lingering idols of control you may have. You will quickly realize that you cannot predict or manipulate how the blessing will come. Your role is not to control the outcome, but to prepare for it. Faithful preparation is an act of surrender. It says, God, I trust you enough to get ready even when I don't have all the details. It says, I believe your word enough to move forward even when the path isn't clear. The stirring pushes you to release your need for certainty and embrace radical trust. Sometimes the stirring will bring with it an unusual boldness. Ideas you once dismissed as impossible now feel urgent. Conversations you were once too intimidated to have now feel necessary. Risks you once feared now feel like acts of obedience. This boldness is not arrogance, it is divine confidence. It is God infusing you with the courage to step out when the time comes. The preparation season is where this boldness is forged. It is in the quiet moments of prayer, in the hidden work of obedience, in the unseen battles of faith that God builds a warrior ready to take new ground. Throughout this entire process, there is a deep sense of anticipation that grows within you. It's not about hype or emotionalism. It's a settled, steady knowing that God is up to something in your life. Even when discouragement tries to creep in, even when delays try to make you doubt, there is a part of your spirit that refuses to give up. That is the unshakable stirring. It is the evidence that God has planted something inside of you that is about to come forth. The enemy cannot snuff it out. Circumstances cannot drown it. Time cannot weaken it. It is a fire shut up in your bones, a destiny that cannot be denied.